Okay, so now we're going to turn to the issue of tenure security. If you work with land tenure folks in your programming, you will hear us talk all the time about tenure security. This is really the heart of what we're concerned about when we're doing land work. So tenure security means that you believe, you have an expectation that you're going to be able to use your land, your forest, your pastures for a reasonable period of time. So this could be a crop season, it could be 30 years if you're planning on harvesting a forest. You have an expectation, though, that you're going to be able to use land and resources for a reasonable period of time, free from the undue interference of others, and in a way, this is critically important, that allows you to reap the benefits of your actions. So if you use your own labor, say to create a terrace for your fields, it's really hard to build a terrace. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work. If you're going to invest that time and work to build a terrace, you want to have some assurance that whatever crops you're raising in those terraced areas are going to be yours to sell or use for your family as you choose. So tenure security usually depends on what we'll call the 3 Ds. You'll have tenure, you're more likely to have tenure security if your rights are defined. People understand what they are. If they're defensible, in other words, if your rights are enforced, and if they're defeasible, if your rights are tradable with other people, so that, again, we can get to that highest value user. Increasing tenure security is what drives a whole lot of land tenure programming around the world. It's certainly what drives a lot of USAID's emphasis in this sector. And the basic question that we're asking when we're focused on tenure security is, do the people who live in the system trust the system? And if they don't trust the system to define their rights, defend their rights, or ensure that their rights can be traded to other people in a voluntary manner who value them more highly, then your system's going to frustrate economic growth. It's probably going to frustrate the achievement of food security, and it may lead to some bad environmental outcomes as well. So security itself exists along a continuum from a situation where you have no security, think about that pavement dweller in an urban slum, to a situation where you have very high levels of security, and this would be typical maybe in a developed world setting where you are a freehold owner of property and the court systems work well and to your favor. You might also have a lot of security if you're a foreign investor in some countries as a result of bilateral trade agreements that provide a lot of protection to foreign investors. This tenure security, as I mentioned earlier, is critically important for supporting an enabling environment, and many of us work on issues related to improving enabling environments. It's hard to get inclusive, sustainable businesses unless unless those businesses feel that their property is secure. You're not really likely to build a business if you think that your inventory can be taken from you, or let's say you're a large-scale farmer, if you think your fields or your crops can be taken away from you. So critically important to the enabling environment. And I talked about some of the benefits of secure tenure just a moment ago. So just to repeat very quickly, having that security of tenure, knowing what's mine, knowing what's yours, and knowing that those different rights will be enforced by either a court or through an informal system is likely to reduce conflict between the two of us, provide me with positive, and you with positive incentives to invest in our property, to raise the value of that property, or just to conserve it if we just want to conserve the property. Those actions that we take to improve our property have spillover benefits for our neighbors. We might be generating jobs by using our property efficiently and effectively, or we may just be providing a nice environment by maintaining our home or by maintaining a parcel of land in a nice way. And there are also often environmental benefits that come from tenure security. Environments where there's significant amounts of tenure insecurity, you might think maybe of some of the problems the Soviet Union had before it transitioned from socialist management. In those sorts of situations, or in situations where the government owns land but doesn't have the capacity to enforce against either loggers or poachers, land can be misused and the environment can be degraded. So a best practice in the development space is to create or support secure enough tenure. So what does that mean to be secure enough? Secure enough might come with public recognition of a customary or indigenous right. The government might say, okay, we know that you're over there, traditional community, and we will, through law, recognize your right to be there. That may enhance your security as a community. You might be secure enough if you receive a piece of paper, a certificate that gives you formal rights to use or manage a resource for a period of time. This is a very common approach now in many countries in the developing world, to begin issuing certificates for long-term use rights. You might be secure enough if you get a community managed title. So the community itself can demarcate the boundaries of the community, identify households within the community, do a mapping of the community, and then work with the government to issue documents that recognize rights to be there. And then, of course, there are more formal processes along the lines of issuing titles or deeds to properties that are then recorded in public registries. So you want, again, to get to the place where people are secure enough to make necessary investments that enhance and sustain economic growth over the long term, that provide them with incentives to improve the way they use land and resources and to manage resources, land included, in a sustainable way, not to overuse, misuse the resources, leading to something like a tragedy of the commons. And you want land and resource rights to be secure enough that levels of conflict are reduced. We don't want to be fighting over access to the property. It's certainly not, it doesn't lead and isn't conducive to long-term economic growth. So what are the sorts of things that lead to this insecurity? We've talked a little bit about these before, but let's just review them very quickly. Tenure can be insecure when there are overlapping land governance systems, and we'll talk a little bit more about this shortly. In some environments, in many developing world environments, you will find both a formal land governance system and a customary system operating at the same time. And many people will be a part of the customary system, fewer people will be part of the formal system, but if those two systems don't talk to each other and have an effective interface, that can lead to real problems and insecurity. Insecurity might also come from the fact that the land governance system, the formal sector system, isn't really capable of doing its job. People inside a land ministry might not have the capacity to do what they need to do to map and register parcels of land, potentially millions of parcels of land. Or it could be the case that there aren't formally trained surveyors in a country, and so you can't go out and survey parcels because you just don't have enough capacity among that professional cadre of people. But insecurity can come from other sources. It can come from the system being corrupt. It can come, in some cases, from customary norms, not matching changing realities on the ground. So two examples that I'd like to talk about now. The first is the example of insecurity that women face around their land rights. So in East Africa and in Tanzania particularly, women do have rights that are protected under the law. They have rights that are recognized at the international level through the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the CEDAW Convention, and they also have rights written into Tanzanian law. There are, in fact, new provisions in the Tanzanian Constitution that address and protect women's rights to hold land on an equal basis with men. But the problem is that social norms make it very difficult for women to enforce the formal rights that they hold under the law. And this is a particular problem for widows. When a woman's husband dies, it's unfortunately not uncommon for the husband's family to come into a home, onto the fields that a woman's been working to support herself, her family, her children, and literally throw her off the land, engage in a family-level land grab from a widow. Widows have a very hard time, especially poor rural widows, enforcing their right to be on the land. Social norms frown on that. Women face strong social pressure to either marry a brother-in-law or to leave the property so that the property stays in the husband's family and is controlled by the husband's family, parents or brothers. This means that widows are turned out of their homes. They're forced off farms. They're less able to take care of their children. Children suffer, they suffer economically, they lose their livelihoods, and they may face rising levels of poverty. Many end up in cities and urban areas with very few livelihood choices. So that insecurity that women face as a result of customary norms and those kinds of pressures are very real, and they impede women's empowerment and women's ability to experience economic benefits that we would all like them to see. Other kinds of insecurity that we might look at come from urban areas. I talked a little while ago about the relative level of insecurity that a pavement dweller would face. Well, around the world, millions of people live with significant levels of insecurity because they're living in urban slums. If you take as an example the slums in Haiti, you might ask, well, why are people living in these environments? Why are people streaming into slum areas around the world, in the developing world especially, and in Haiti? Why are people going to live under very difficult conditions? In part, it's because the property environment in Haiti is extraordinarily complicated. You'll hear about this when we talk about Haiti as a country example. It's an extremely complicated property environment where it's complicated, expensive, time-consuming to formally build or transfer land rights, and so very little formal low-income housing gets built. As a result, many people come to cities looking for economic opportunity, but there are no formal sector homes to rent. There's no low-income housing other than slums. So people build where they can, they build on spaces they don't own, they build under conditions that are not governed by any kind of housing codes. Oftentimes they're building in sensitive areas. They might be flood-prone areas, they might be ravines, but they're the only place people can go because there is not an alternative. The property system itself is so cumbersome, so complicated, so inaccessible to the poor that people don't have choices. They're looking for economic opportunity, but formal sector housing has largely been placed off limits to them, and this leads to a whole variety of environmental and social concerns in a place like Haiti.